and she certainly has a degree of brain power. But I do not think she's an intelligent person. I think, in fact, she's a very stupid woman, and her actions have shown how stupid she is.
Prince Harry has tried to put to rest growing speculation about his marriage to Meghan Markle. During his appearance at the NATO summit via video to promote the Invictus Games, Harry had a picture of his wedding day to Meghan Markle behind his shoulder. And then, surprise, surprise, Harry leaked to one of his favourite outlets, Page Six, the fact that said wedding photo was behind his shoulder. But Lady Colin Campbell, is this convincing anyone? Because we know that Harry and Meghan have spent significant amounts of time apart. We know their marriage is now under a significant amount of strain. They have decided to divorce their professional pursuits. So really, the fact that they've leaked to the New York Post, oh, there's a wedding picture, is that going to be enough, given we haven't even seen them in public together for weeks? And people in Montecito say that Harry is just seen at the moment skulking around the cafes looking miserable on his own.
Dan, first of all, this is keeping them in the news, which of course is their objective.
Always.
Secondly, whenever marriages are troubled and the rumors begin to surface that things are problematic, people deny, and they continue denying until all of a sudden they can't deny any longer. Any couple in the public eye that is possibly going to separate is not going to do it except on terms that suit them. So I can well see why Harry has, leaked this, oh, everything is happy with us. But everybody knows everything isn't happy with them. They themselves have confirmed to people that everything isn't happy with them. But of course, what they say privately and what they say publicly is another matter altogether. But until they are actually ready to part officially, they are going to continue to deny the undeniable.
All right, folks, buckle up because Lady Colin Campbell just dropped some major bombshells about the state of Harry and Meghan's marriage. And it's not looking good. According to Lady C, even Harry and Meghan themselves confirm that they're struggling. But of course, when they're in front of the cameras, it's all smoke and mirrors. They'll deny everything until they can't anymore. And let's talk about Harry's recent sightings. Walking around Montecito alone, looking downright depressed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't that sound like a guy who's happily married?
And who knows? They may never part. It may never suit them to part. At this point, let's just wait and see what happens.
No, I completely agree. It's a very unhappy relationship, but there are professional reasons, there are financial reasons, there are reputational reasons to stay together to make it work. And also we see this a lot, don't we, with ordinary folk who have children and the pressure comes on and all of that type of thing. But what's your belief in terms of what they are saying privately?
I think the marriage is rocky. I've been told it's very rocky, and that there is no great deal of affection there between them. She has absolute contempt for him and has made it obvious. And he basically feels that he was led up the garden path. He was promised great success. She promised him that, she and he would be able to supplant William and Catherine in the public mind, and they would be the number one couple. All they needed to do was move to Hollywood and she would become the huge star that she has always lusted after, and he would become as well, under her aegis, the huge star that he has always lusted after as well. And none of it has taken place the way she promised and the way they envisaged, because of course they have done everything wrong. Where they should have been positive, they have been negative. Where they should have been, they should have been focusing on their glamour and focusing on their royal appeal and focusing on the positive. They have done the absolute opposite. They have done, oh, poor me, we're so disadvantaged. Well, when you're telling people who are working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, worried about where the next meal is coming from, worried about the heating bills, worried about the doctor's bills, how much sympathy did they really think that ultimately anybody with a brain was going to have for them? And also,
None.
sympathy is deeply unglamorous. If you want, the whole business of royalty is that it's supposed to provide you, the average person, with the glorious life that you will never have, vicariously. Well, they've been providing people with, oh, poor me, we're so dreadfully disadvantaged, while we're so advantaged vicariously. The whole thing was a stupid plan in the first place. But I mean, Harry is, everybody knows, is an idiot. But Meghan, I don't think, really is much more intelligent. I think she sort of has something going on up here that leads people to think that she has intelligence, and she certainly has a degree of brain power. But I do not think she's an intelligent person. I think, in fact, she's a very stupid woman, and her actions have shown how stupid she is. Either that, or she is so mentally disturbed and so distorted as a personality that even though she has intelligence, she lacks everything else to shore it up, and therefore comes across as a fool.
Exactly. Now here's where things get even more ridiculous. Harry is so desperate to prove his marriage is fine that he actually staged a PR stunt. And it was so obvious. So get this. Harry shows up virtually at the NATO summit. And right there, perfectly positioned behind him, is his wedding photo. I mean, come on, how obvious is this? And then, because that wasn't pathetic enough, Harry leaked this to Page 6 himself. Like, hey guys, look. I still have a wedding picture up. Everything is fine. This is the celebrity equivalent of posting an old couple's photo right before a breakup. Lady C sees right through this.
I think it's a combination of the two, if I'm completely honest. Now, Lady C, another big royal row has been going on behind the scenes, as we know, and as we have previously discussed for some time. But it exploded into the public spotlight this week. So King Charles versus his younger brother, Prince Andrew. And we now learn that Prince Andrew has lost the money. So what they are effectively now trying to do, Charles and the royal establishment, is starve Prince Andrew out of his home. They want him to be so financially desolate, so unable to take part in any of the renovations that are required at Royal Lodge, the former house of the Queen Mother, that he accepts this plan to move into Frogmore Cottage, which has been done up beautifully, of course, to the tune of millions and millions by Harry and Meghan. That was the house that they were in before they were evicted. But the problem is, Lady C, Andrew doesn't want Frogmore, because his view is that he paid for Royal Lodge. He had a long-term lease. He used his money that he'd earned from the sale of the house that the Queen had gifted him and Fergie after their wedding. So where do you stand on this? Is it fair what Charles is doing? I know automatically the view in the mainstream media is we rush in to say Prince Andrew, horrible, horrible, horrible man. But is this fair, what's happening?
I think it's totally unfair. I think it's unfair. And I also am not convinced by the genuineness of it all. And I'll tell you why I say that. And I don't care that Robert Hardman has said it. And I mean, I've met Robert Hardman, and I know he has very good connections at the palace, etc. But Robert Hardman is also a jobbing journalist. And Robert Hardman will go with what he's fed. And to a large extent, the whole Andrew thing is a massive distraction to take attention away from the Harry and Meghan problem. And that so there's something else for people to be concerned about and something else to distract them. So I think Andrew is being used yet again. I think he was used by David Boys and Virginia Giuffre and Bill Clinton to take attention away from the Clintons' role in the Jeffrey Epstein scandals. And so I think he's still being used, but he's now being used by the palace to deflect attention away from Harry, and so that he's basically being a sacrificial lamb a second time. I think it's unfair. I think it's dishonorable, I have to tell you. Prince Andrew has the second son's house.
This is classic PR distraction. When the rumors start swirling, throw out a fake happy image and hope people forget. Well, nobody's buying it. And if their public life wasn't a big enough clue, let's talk about their career moves. Because if you thought they were a power couple working together, think again. Meghan is all about Hollywood connections, Netflix, and her lifestyle brand. Meanwhile, Harry is just clinging to his last remaining project, the Invictus Games. And guess what? They barely spend any time together. The last time they were photographed together feels like ages ago. And now Harry is just moping around Montecito alone. Lady C makes a great point. This is how it always goes. First, it's everything's fine. Then it's we're just busy with work. And before you know it, boom, divorce announcement.
Royal Lodge was given to the previous Duke of York, who was the second son of King George V. He was given Royal Lodge when he and Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon were married, and he was the second son and was going to remain the second son because there was every prospect of the then Prince of Wales, David, marrying and producing an heir. So let's remember that Royal Lodge is not a first son's house. It is a second son's house. And Andrew is a second son. And all this press nonsense about, well, it could ultimately go to Charlotte or Louis. I mean, excuse me. Louis is a second son as well. And Charlotte's a daughter. If it's going to go to them, why should it not stay with Andrew? And he has spent a lot of money at it. And also, the press doesn't know what it's talking about. I know what I'm talking about because I have a bigger house that was in a worse condition than Royal Lodge. And I can tell you the figures being bandied about of how much it costs to repair and how much it costs to maintain. It's all balderdash created by ignoramuses who don't have any experience of how to maintain a property of that nature. I think the whole thing stinks to high heaven. And I actually think that if the king were really so desperate to lean on Andrew, because Andrew has already been a sacrificial lamb, why would he be sacrificed again? The whole thing is actually disgraceful in my view. And I do not for a second think that Charles is anywhere near as vicious and malicious and petty and nasty as the palace are briefing so that attention can be deflected away from Harry.
I know, but the thing is, Charles could put an end to this. That's the problem. He hasn't had the conversations face to face with Andrew. He's allowing it all to play out in the media, but he could put a stop to it. And I do think what's interesting about the whole, oh, let's pass it on to George or Charlotte thing is that Andrew doesn't believe that should happen. Andrew believes, because he has a 60-year lease, that it should be passed on to one of his daughters, Beatrice or Eugenie. And he believes that that was all agreed with the late Queen.
Which it was. Which it was. He had a 75-year lease. He spent millions doing it up. And yes, it's, you get ingresses of water and you get mold. I mean, you're speaking about a few £1,000s. You're not speaking about millions. If people had any experience of what this, as they pontificate, they know what absolute claptrap they're speaking about.
Well, look, ladies, I know nothing about castles like you because, of course, Castle Goring is spectacular. But I am told by sources close to Andrew that the castle is that Royal Lodge is absolutely not in the disrepair that the mainstream media claims it to be. Apparently, it's actually in pretty good shape.
We've seen it before. Every celebrity couple that's about to break up does the exact same thing. They pretend everything is great, until one day they suddenly amicably separate. So the real question is, how long until they admit it? Because right now it's looking like a countdown to the inevitable. So here's where we stand. Meghan is focusing on her brand. Harry is alone. Their marriage, hanging on by a PR thread. And at this point it's a matter of when, not if. Harry left the royal family for this? And now he's just wandering around coffee shops in Montecito looking miserable? You really have to ask, was it worth it?
Yes. And it would remain in good shape because he spent a lot of money when he moved in, and he didn't move in that long ago. And the photographs that they're showing a bit of mold hair, a bit of mold. This happens in every single big house.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not speaking about vast sums of money. You're speaking about minor sums of money. And I just think it's scandalous the way Prince Andrew has been victimized. And I hasten to add, I don't know Prince Andrew well. On occasions that I have met him, I didn't particularly warm to him.
No.
So I'm not saying any of this because I like Prince Andrew. And I'm saying it because it's the right thing to say.
Exactly. And the point is, you do not just buy into a narrative because it's what the establishment and the mainstream media is telling you to buy into. Now, I feel like with Prince Andrew, I absolutely bought into that narrative. We even had disagreements about it, Lady C. But over the past few years, I have done much, much more research into this situation. I have spoken to people directly involved, both in terms of Epstein and Andrew. And I can tell you that the mainstream media narrative around Andrew is completely completely unfair. And I completely agree with you that he has now become a sacrificial lamb. But anyway, we'll talk more about that in the future because I do just want to quickly touch on this new woke plan. And I just can't stand how the royal family are constantly looking at woke plans at the moment. This was revealed in the Mail on Sunday for reforms that would see royal officials dropping the word empire from British honours like the OBE, the Order of the British Empire. Now, it sounds like, Lady C, it's actually the palace who are pushing this much more than the government. And I just think, why? Like, why are they opening the door to something like this? It makes no sense. You know.
Well, Dan, I hate to disagree with you, but this is the one occasion upon which
good. Let's have a fight. Okay, so what, you like this plan? I hate it.
I don't think it's harmful, and I'll tell you why. Because being Jamaican, remember, you're a New Zealander, so aside from your native population, but Jamaica has a largely Black population, and there are all sorts of sensitivities around colour and now around the word empire. And since we no longer have a British Empire, I think it would be no harm to substitute empire for something else. Well,
they're saying it could be substituted for excellence or Elizabeth. They seem to be the two options.
Or anything else. Whatever they come up with. It's window dressing, but I think it's window dressing that isn't going to cost the monarchy anything. And it's going to actually appease some of the Jeremiads and some of the idiots. Because,
but I just think it's such a slippery slope, Lady C. Because if the royal family is constantly chipping away at traditions, then where does it end?
And let's not forget, public support for them is in free fall. People are sick of the drama, sick of the PR stunts, and ready to move on. And if you think Meghan isn't already planning her next big reinvention, think again. Because when that split announcement comes, she'll be 3 steps ahead. Alright folks, that's it for today. Hit that like button, subscribe for more, and let's get the conversation going. Do you think Harry and Meghan's marriage is really on the rocks? Or is this just more media hype? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.